order, please. Good evening. This is a meeting of the Hampden Board of Selectmen and the Hampden Board of Health, January 4th, 2021 at 6 p.m. This meeting is being conducted remotely using video conferencing technology as approved by the Governor's Order of March of 2020. This is actually January 4th, 2021. For correction? Yeah. Okay. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Is anyone recording the meeting other than us? Please indicate by beeping or raising a hand or doing something. All right. We have any minutes? Okay. The first item on the agenda, I think will not be on the agenda. Classification Compensation Study Committee, Bob.
That is moved to next week.
Seemingly she would actually have a complete.
Oh yes, oh yes. They were ready, but the person who actually did the work, Elizabeth, was given. I was told that she was given a surprise vacation to St. Thomas by her husband for Christmas, and so they went. And then also Mary Arcardi also had vacation, so it's the last couple of weeks of the loss.
But what about us?
Yeah.
All right, the next item on the agenda is a discussion of dispatch services and a potential vote. Anyone have anything to add?
Mr. Chair, should we consider pausing this a bit until we get our feet settled with the police chief, where we stand, at least interim chief or whichever, and maybe get that person's input? I'm not talking, it's a huge delay. Blinking.
I'm blanking here.
Maybe not a huge delay, but still we want to see where we are with the interim chief. I think that person, he or she, should have some input into it.
That's what I had suggested last week also, but I am concerned that the decision be brought to some conclusion, and the police chief position could be months before it was filled. We don't really know. You know, sometimes these things go on longer than you anticipate. And I think we've gotten all of the information and done a lot of research into this topic. So I'm not sure any new information would be forthcoming. I think the police chief would be able to bring his own personal experiences, perhaps, to the discussion. The new police chief to the discussion. But I think we have researched it pretty extensively.
Do you care to make a motion?
In anticipation, I did set up an impact bargaining session for Wednesday. So if this is going to be passed over, I'll change that.
Okay, so I move that we, that Hampden select Westcom for its dispatch service provider and execute the contract provided to us by them, subject to legal review as soon as possible.
Any second?
I will second the motion for the purpose of discussion.
Close.
I think.
I'll second the motion for purpose of discussion.
Any further any discussion?
Well, I think that all things being equal, everyone would probably prefer that we keep the status quo and keep the dispatch services in Hampden. But unfortunately, everything is not equal. Now, given that Westcom is in the process of seeking national accreditation, and which is the highest possible level, and Wilbraham is not, that Westcom offers type 2 service 24/7, and Wilbraham does not, that Westcom provides services to our immediate neighbors of Munson, Long Meadow, and East Long Meadow, and Wilbraham does not, that Westcom has a proven track record of providing this service to another community, and Wilbraham does not, that Westcom has the potentiality of full reimbursement and Wilbraham does not. That Westcom is endorsed and strongly supported by the state of Massachusetts as the official regional body, and Wilbraham is not. That Westcom provides the highest diversification for Hampden, and Wilbraham does not. That Westcom provides an equal vote at the decision-making table, and Wilbraham does not. And most importantly, that Westcom secures a spot in the front of the line for state funding, and that Westcom is the most cost-effective solution for Hampden. I think that all of those things weigh heavily in my decision, and I think that give us the biggest bang for our buck.
Go back to you said about funding.
Funding, yeah.
That Westcom has full funding, but Wilbraham does not.
Well, I didn't say.
I don't know the exact words.
That Westcom secures a spot at the front of the line for
But
state
before
funding.
that, there was another thing
And
about
before
funding.
that, I said unequal vote at the voting table, diversification is most cost-effective solution.
No.
It's endorsed and strongly supported by the state of Massachusetts.
Next one.
That Westcom provides the highest diversification, provides an equal vote at the decision-making table, secures a spot in the front of the line for state funding, and most especially that Westcom is the most cost-effective solution. You can have these. I mean,
Let me see.
don't look at the other side because
No,
I'm not doing the other side. I may have missed some things. Those are the things that were highlighted for me. So, I mean, other people could pick up other things and other reasons. I think that
this one here, it says that the Westcom has most potential for full reimbursement. Wilbraham does not.
I didn't.
Why do you-
I just didn't read Wilbraham does not because I think I didn't just read that part of it now because I thought that the potential,
Okay.
the word potential.
Any comments, John?
I guess a little history here, why we're looking at regionalizing dispatch is because the board is always looking for an opportunity to provide good value, and also we're very concerned about the money. Last year, as you know, our budget went up $330,000 just for the ambulance alone. To moderate that, we had to do severe cuts in many of the things we want, including the paving budget. This can't keep going on. We have to look for ways to provide good value and provide a combination budget to the people that doesn't keep increasing their taxes with the same services. To that end, we did look at this. Honestly, if money wasn't an issue, we probably would leave the dispatch in town. But money does have to factor into the equation. People's taxes are going up. Some people, they can accommodate it. Many seniors in town are on fixed incomes. I'm getting one myself. And it is an issue. We all just got our tax bills, and some of the board was mentioning theirs went up this year. So we have been cognizant of that. So to that end, I think it is prudent for us to look at this type of way to save money. If we came down to a choice between Westcon and Wilbraham, and I think we are down to that choice if we move dispatch out of town, to me, everything I've heard, both in talking to the Wilbraham people, the presentations of Westcon, I think we'll get better bang from our buck by sticking with our neighbors, Wilbraham. And that's my opinion.
My concern, I think that technologically, Westcom is probably where they need to be. My concern is that in the discussion we had with them is, I think Bobby said it'd be over a year before we could consolidate with them, and that's probably because they're going to the new building, and there would be some kind of, take time to do that. So that's what I'm thinking is happening there. I have some misgivings about Westcom simply because of the nature of where they are right now in their process. I believe, quite frankly, that 10 years from now, every town will be combined with some kind of large regional district like that. I think the state will probably just divide the state up into 4 or 5 things, and everyone will end up there, like the Berkshires, or like they're doing now in Essex County and the South Shore too. So I think that's where it's at, and even in our neighbors of Brimfield, Holland, Wales, and then they're all up in New Braintree with the state police thing. So we have a motion for Westcom. Any further discussion?
Well, I would also point out that while this is an entirely different endeavor than the school endeavor, we entered into a regional agreement with the schools, and we went to 4 votes of the town as to whether we should allow that agreement to be changed. And 4 times the town said, we don't want to merge with Wilbraham. So I think that although there is a segment of the community that doesn't have that history, I think we have to be cautious about Wilbraham. And although the person running the dispatch seems very nice and very efficient and I'm very positive about what he's told us, it is the selectmen that are his boss, and we don't have an equal vote at that decision-making process. We have a discussion, we have become aware, but certainly.
Well, we have an IMA. We have a potential IMA to agree to. But
it wasn't an equal vote. It was go to arbitration eventually, or mediation, wasn't it? That's all I remember.
If there's a dispute.
Right. So if there was a dispute over anything, I mean, I think that, over the salaries or over anything, if you couldn't come to an agreement between Wilbraham and Hampden, you'd have to go to another level. But regardless, okay.
But if you're at Westcom and we have a dispute over something, we have a 1/5 vote.
Right.
And if the other towns say no, then where are we there?
Well, you could be outvoted, but you're not outvoted. I mean, the majority would. You don't get that.
No.
Well, I think that having sat on the school committee for 52 years, I know how the internal work. I know a bit about the internal working, and I know that Hampden is not. Does not have an equal say at the table. I mean, we just don't. And I think that I don't see why it would be any different in this arrangement. I think
because I think of the IMA, I haven't read it recently, but I think in the draft IMA, it says that the fire chief and the police chief make the decisions as to budget and grants and that type of thing. Right. If there's a dispute, if there's a dispute or they disagree, and I don't imagine there's going to be a lot of disputes in dispatch service, but if there is, then it would go to the boards of selectmen, and they have 3 selectmen, and we have 3 selectmen. And if we can't agree, we choose I think it's an independent arbiter. Yeah. And then they would, it would be an arbitration. But I can't imagine any dispute would go that far in emergency services.
I couldn't imagine that either years ago, but today I can imagine it. The other point that I would make is that this board has changed in the past few years because the town wanted to see things done differently. They wanted to see different decisions. They wanted to see a different direction. That's what I picked up from it. Okay, that's what they told me. So I think doing Wilbraham is doing the same as Simo. I mean, Westcom is doing something different. I mean, can I guarantee that Westcom will be hugely successful? No. Can I guarantee Wilbraham will be? No. None of it. Okay. But I know that the feeling of the town was we should be changing the direction. We should be making different decisions. And I think that doing Wilbraham is the same decision we've always made. We intend to make.
Wouldn't a different decision be a major business decision is if we decide to move dispatch out of town? Well, that's a pretty big decision.
Only one mic is working. No, I'm saying. I'm missing one.
Oh, no.
Green. Is this working now?
You gotta hold it close though.
Is it working now?
No.
My last comment was that, that this board is a new board based on recent voting in which the town voters said that they wanted a change of direction, is my interpretation of what they said. And they wanted a different vision for the town, and they wanted different decisions for the town, okay? They wanted more transparency. There were lots of things they wanted, perhaps, but they did vote to change. They did vote for change. So I think that change is going to Westcom. Going to Wilbraham is the same old, same old. It's the same decision that has been made all along. So that's in essence what I said, I think.
John, do you have any other further comments?
I guess I don't know how to equate that. I mean, the town did vote about regional dispatch twice before. Once not to leave town and go to East Long Meadow. So wouldn't that be similar to the town saying they don't want to go to Westcon? And then they voted, okay, we're happy to have East Long Meadow come to Hampden and share an operation in the town of Hampden. So if you're saying, well, we want to change from previous votes, then I guess the change would be to say, okay, we do want dispatch out of town. That would be the change from previous votes. Because the town did vote, we don't want to leave Hampden. And you're saying, well, it's okay to leave Hampden if you go to Chicopee, but not Wilbraham.
Well, I think the situation has changed because of the financial savings. We are in a different place financially, and I think that's and the state adding the money to the pot kind of thing. It's a whole different financial analysis. So I think that has led us further down the road to dispatch, or to revitalizing dispatch. But certainly the safest thing is, or the easiest decision is to say, just leave it right here in Hampden. I mean, I don't deny that, but I think that it's time for a new direction, and it's time for to engage in a new opportunity, as far as I can see.
Any further discussion? We have a motion on the floor to consolidate with Westcom. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Donald, no. Prerogative of the chairman, I'd like to make a motion so we can resolve this one way or the other. I move the town enter into an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Wilbraham, whereby the town of Wilbraham would provide emergency dispatch services for the town of Hampden, contingent upon consummating an intermunicipal agreement agreeable to both boards of selectmen.
I'll put a time frame on that down because we want to obviously done before budget time.
April 1st, May 1st? No, April.
Probably could go middle April because now we push the back.
We'll do April 1st so we can, so if we 90 days.
Excuse me, I'm not clear. 90 days to do.
Within the next 90 days to complete this agreement.
To get the IMA done. Okay. And also you'll have to negotiate with the union if we go for it. Any discussion?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? I guess my point is that I think we need to consolidate our dispatch for a savings for the town. It's very costly. And we have an opportunity to take advantage of some state funding to get that done. I think Wilbraham is our best advantage going forward. I think they know our town better. They're closer. The dispatch will be just virtually a couple of miles down the street from where it is today. Many of the dispatchers are very familiar with the town, and I see it as a win-win for both towns.
So we still plan on investigating ways to get around the dark station. We have not abandoned that. We're looking for staffing of the window. We've investigated the timeline of people coming in, and we think we have a good handle on that. So, we understand a police presence in town is not going away. I think when we talked about building the police station years ago, Jeff made a good point that the police in Hampden, it's a mobile station. It really is. 90% of all interaction with the police is that cruiser coming to your door. or stopping a police cruiser on the street and chatting with them. So possibly where the door isn't as much of a thing as it was 50 years ago. But that door is still going to be there. It might be dark at 3 in the morning, but the cruiser will still be at your door when you need them, dispatched within seconds.
Excuse me, Marilyn, just to comment on that 50 years ago, when I moved into town, there used to be a sign on the door out here that after, I think, 8 o'clock at night, call the state police.
Yeah. I would just point out that although the vote may go to Wilbraham right now, that what I envision happening is that, again, as you just said a minute ago, we will be forced to do another merge in the future at another expense of some sort. And I think it's really voting for 2 changes within the next how many years, who knows? But I know that that's the move that the state is going to take for all of us.
I think consolidation globally is an opportunity for the town to save a tremendous amount of money over the next 3 to 5 years, in which we need to do. Any further discussion? There's a motion on the floor to proceed to negotiate an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Wilbraham by April 1st. Town administrator will see that. We moved and seconded, ready for the vote. All opposed? All in favor? Donald, aye. All opposed?
Mary Ellen, no.
Thank you. All right. The next item on the agenda is Selectmen's goal setting.
We did. You gave me 3 sets, and I was encouraged to try and get them all together and have you maybe reduce, consolidate goals as well.
In light of what's changed, can we just reevaluate those and bring that? In light of how the situation has changed the past 2 weeks, can we reevaluate and bring that back?
Really?
We lost our chief. We just
I see.
Yeah.
We might have a little different goal going on here.
Well, I think again, to go back to, I'm sorry. I think again, to go back to the main idea, which is you should have 1, maybe 2 global statements. And then all of these things that we put under them, capital planning, fire, school, again, go under these 2 things. So I think that we don't have to.
I agree with that.
And this
They take the global statements,
right.
and then divide up what's the tasks,
these
the
under
tasks,
each
and,
one.
and what John said about
Right.
Saving taxes can go underneath the.
Go under, like the first one that I had was to enhance the overall efficiency of the town and ensure the best work environment and provide the most economical management of the town's resources.
Right, that would
Well,
fit
almost
on-
every
that would
single
fit on-
thing
that
fits
would
under
fit the
that
tax,
in essence, the
raise
tax
the
base,
okay.
all the rest of
So
it.
maybe we can just move those around
Okay.
for the next day.
Does the board want to do that, or do you want me to try and put together a consolidation of what you're talking about here, including some overarching goals and then some tasks underneath?
Let me say something. I think that's a great idea for Bob to do. He has the experience. And I think there's nothing wrong with Bob emailing that to us for our consideration. So we're ready to bring it back to the next meeting. We're not making decisions on these emails. He's sharing his thoughts with us, and we're giving thoughts back that are going to be brought to a published meeting the following week. So I'm all in favor of it, as long as there's no reticence to Bob sharing these out with us by email.
I think you should put it together and send it as a document for us to bring to the meeting.
That's fine.
Can we go to
That's
committees?
Yes,
Are you going to make that part of the handbook?
that's what I've got to do. And I rewrote it for committees in general.
Okay.
So we can just take it up in June. I mean, you can both look, I have 2 copies here someplace. You can both look at it, add things to it, and then if that's agreeable, when we do the revision of the policy manual in June, we will just include this if you're agreeable to that.
All right.
So give one to John so he has one if you would, please.
Remember, okay. All right, so Bob's going to put together the goals under the global, kind of the global statement,
Yep.
and then we'll fit those things under there. Town administrator's search. Do we want to embark on that?
You did interview 2 firms. Also, today when I talked with the Collins Institute, I said to them, I know that I had asked you a while back when Mary Ellen passed this along to come up with an overview of the structure of our operation. And I said, in case we have this on the agenda tonight, in case I'm asked what my thoughts are, I'm saying you people have gone through the workforce here, better than anybody else probably, how we're functioning, and you do this for a living. Maybe when you make your report, you could also report on what you think the town should be doing in terms of administrator. I just want to tell you, that's what I said to them. If you want to proceed with one or the other search firms, I can set that up with you.
Okay, so the Collins group is going to come back to us next week. They're going to give us the job descriptions, the salary study, and a overview of how they think the operation is working here and how we might consolidate or not consolidate our positions and restructure. Is that correct?
They are looking at the various responsibilities that we have here. Selectmen's responsibilities, administrative assistant responsibilities, and also our health assistant also does some things on behalf of the selectmen's office. We're going to take a look at all those, sort through them, and then come back with a recommendation. And I said to them, listen, I think this is timely to also take a look at the TA position and make a recommendation to the board.
Okay, so that covers it all.
They can do that. That's really.
I think I don't know what's going on with these mics, but I think one of the things that happens after you've been doing things for a number of years is that people assume other responsibilities and they're not really defined by their position. And so you really have to, every once in a while, clean house and go back and say, okay, this is what you're responsible for.
Thank you. In regard to the TA search, we had quotes from 2 different firms. Bob, are you going to go ahead and just go with Collins, or are we going to have both firms refresh the quotes to us?
I can have both firms refresh the quotes.
I mean, I thought they were pretty equal. I really thought that they knew each other. And it's funny, in the, they listed the different ones they had recommended over the years, and several of them had the same town.
Right.
Like one term, they might have picked the person for Ipswich. And then the next time they used the other firm for Ipswich. So obviously.
I think though that whether you can always update the bids if you wanted to, but I think the Collins analysis will tell us, do we need a town administrator? Does it have to be a full-time town administrator? How do they think the town would best operate with an administrator? Do we need a town administrative assistant? Do we need a Department of Health, whatever her title is, person? And how does that all fit together? And what is their recommendation on that whole structure is where I'm looking. And new microphones.
And if you're not happy with what they provide next week, I think you can ask them to continue working in a particular area. We got the standard grant from the Department of Revenue to do this. I have to say that that standard grant means a lot more work in a larger community. In this community, they had to do less work for the money. And so I would not shy away from asking for something additional if you're not satisfied
with the report that they give us next week. Okay.
And can I just make one more comment? In addition to their report, I would at some point like to hear the town administrator's position on how you think the organization works, because that would be important. You've been here hands-on and you have a little more information than they do maybe.
The next item on our agenda is appointment of a reserve police officer. Michael J. Lynch is being offered by the chief. I believe Mr. Lynch has been here again, back and forth, been here before several times.
I don't know if he's on the list now or not.
Appointment of reserve officer.
Is he there?
We have a hand here, but that's not Lynch.
So we have, Mr. Chair, we have recommendation from the chief to reappoint Mike Lynch back to the.
I'm not sure what's going on. No, I haven't changed mine.
So with the recommendation of the chief of police and the fact that Mr. Lynch has served the town before with no reprimands on his record or whichever. We'll make this quick. I'll make a motion to honor the chief Lynch.
I will second it for purposes of discussion. I would like an overview of the staffing in the police department. I looked at the town report and found that there were 11 police officer, detective sergeants, and the chief. And then there are 12 reserve officers and 7 auxiliary officers, in addition to dispatchers, matrons, administrative assistant, administrative clerk. We are a town of 5,000 people. That seems like a very heavy load to me. Although I don't know that for a fact, because somebody would have to come in and say, you know, this is how I'm using them, this is what's going on. And I think the decision on adding another reserve officer would be more timely when the new person comes in, the new chief comes in and says, yes, I think I really do need a new person, another person. But right now, this seems like a very heavily staffed department. Now, they all might have very important jobs and be doing fine job, and I may be speaking out of turn, but, you know, now, the dispatchers are going to be off the list, you know, I mean, so eventually, because I would assume, but whatever. So that's the numbers they've got. 6, 9, 10, 11. 6, 9, 10, 11 people.
Okay, so the role of the reserve officer is to fill shifts, and we used to have up to 18 in the past, but Jeff has been doing some paring down as people weren't taking it. That is, they're on the list, but every time you called, that person was available.
Right.
So his role is always, or his goal is always to look for people that are available. As we have officers on vacation, officers taking classes, et cetera, you need the reserves to be there. It costs us nothing to have a list of people in waiting, if you will, that can take a shift that's open. So, except some of them would be, I think, adverse to being on the list if they're never getting a chance to come down. So you keep that list short and concise, and then you're always monitoring to see, are those people available? The auxiliary officers, totally different breed, have really nothing to do with that type of service.
By the way, I've ordered better microphones, the lavalier, 7 weeks ago, but we can't get
Promises.
Can't get shipments apparently from Asia.
It's one of the reasons we're looking for a new TA.
Well, do we, I don't know where it's coming from. It seems like you and me. I moved over here a
What
little.
about turning one off? Turning one off.
Shut one of these off.
Okay, Jeff, what's the speak?
Where's Jeff?
No. Jeff, can you raise your hand? Virtual hand, I should say.
Can you hear me now, John?
Yeah.
Okay, I keep disconnecting. It's driving me nuts. But as far as the reserve officer goes, you're absolutely correct. We pare those numbers down over time. You're going to see a couple of those names fall off the list within the next couple of weeks. So you'll be down to under 9. The addition of Mr. Lynch, who's worked with us before for a period of time, has an excellent track record, will hold us at about 10. You go much below that, you're going to end up with issues with overtime. You're going to have to pay out more money in overtime, especially in the light of COVID, where we've already dealt with a couple of battles of employees being out for a protracted period of time and leaves us short staffing. So without an appropriate number of reserve officers, the town would incur excessive amounts of overtime. So you can wait and do an assessment of the staff, but it will cost you overtime. I can guarantee you that. As far as auxiliaries go, their sole purpose is for details, which we have a trouble filling. They cost the town nothing, not even to train them. They're a freebie, but they make it very easy for us to fill our details, so construction work can be done in town in a timely fashion.
Any further discussion? Okay.
Say thank you for comments, but I can't get the mic to her. You know, thank you for your comments. That clarifies the reserve officers for me. And so if the number's always been higher, then I guess we could put on another person.
All in favor of appointing Mr. Lynch on a reserve officer, signify by raising their hand. Aye. Aye. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the interim chief of police discussion and vote. Do you have something to report, Mr. Markle?
Yes, I met
Well,
with,
let me
yes.
let me just go a little recap. So the chief, of course, is resigning, and we've several people have expressed within the department have expressed interest in taking the interim position. One of the sergeants has said that he's not interested. I believe there's 2 sergeants and a detective who's interested in the position. And then we began thinking about other alternatives, and the former chief of police in Long Meadow, Richard Marchese, who's filled in as interim chief in Greenfield and everything, came to our attention, and Mr. Markle has spoken to him and interviewed him.
I met with Chief Marchese today. He's the retired chief in Long Meadow. He said he served over 30 years in the Long Meadow Police Department and served as chief approximately half of that time. Retired a number of years ago and has done some interim work in Greenfield. Also served for a period of time with Mass Chiefs Association as executive director, and is available. I said to him that it is likely that we would need an interim chief for up to 3 months while we go through a standard process of soliciting applications and interviewing for a permanent appointment. As the board mentioned last week, this is the fairest way to do it. To have someone who is not interested in the permanent job, and because what happens is if you have an interim appointment who's also an applicant, you have a perception that that person has an inside track, and that tends to depress applications. So we want to encourage those within our department who are interested to apply, and that has happened. And so the board will go through an interview process and make a decision, and we'll have an interim chief for a period of time. I said to him that I actually gave him the code for tonight, and I said to him that if the board appoints you on Monday night, I will come up with a 1-page contract for you on Tuesday. So that's where we left it. I don't know if Chief Marchese is
I thought I saw him on here.
Yeah.
Who's that guy there? I don't see him. Chief, if you're on, could you raise your hand or? Oh, right there. There he is, right there. Oh, left up there.
Oh, there we are.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I see you. Okay, unmute.
Unmute. You have to unmute.
Unmute.
Thank you.
There you go.
Now I have lost your Zoom for the moment, but I
There you go.
assume,
Okay.
yes. Yes, good evening.
Good evening, Chief.
I've been here since the beginning of your meeting. Evening, Chairman Davenport and select members, Glover and Flynn. It's nice to meet you, albeit electronically. And as Administrator Markle said, I did have the opportunity to meet with him today and discuss what's expected of the position. And I would welcome the opportunity to work alongside your dedicated members of your Hampden Police Department service to your community, albeit again for a 2-3 month period or whatever it takes.
Well, one of our issues is the dispatch, and I noticed when you were chief in Long Meadow, you brought in civilian dispatchers. And put the police in.
Yes, that was. We did change to civilian dispatch while I was there. I was also a member of the statewide emergency telecommunications board for over 15 years, which is the state board that does the funding now for the dispatch grants and oversees the entire operation. So I have significant experience in that area also.
Area. Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions?
Well, in your tenure in Greenfield, was it Greenfield? I'm wondering what you found the biggest challenge of going in as an interim person.
Greenfield was 180 degrees from this interim position. Greenfield was in a state of it wasn't running as smoothly as Hampden is now. So the job up there was damage control, and we were also brought in also to secure another permanent chief, which we were able to do as a civil service department. We were able to do that through lateral transfer there. And so.
We lost you.
Until he comes back on, I also, we had Chief Farnsworth in the session this afternoon, and it was agreed that an appointment would begin, if you decide to go forward, next Monday, and that he would be with Chief Farnsworth for a week to do transition, do the handoff.
And I would ask Chief Farnsworth, we've never accepted his resignation, you know, formally. And I would ask that perhaps he could extend his stay for another week.
He did say that he'd be available more days if needed. I'll ask him.
Yes, I can. I can speak with the ops and facilitate a little more time.
Okay.
How much time do you think for transition would you need, Chief Marchese?
Well, a week would be sufficient, I would assume. Again, Greenfield, there was no transition, and you do what you have to do. But I think a week would work, and I sure can keep Chief Farnsworth's cell phone handy.
Right. Yeah. Well, with all these years of experience, I thought a week might do it for you too.
Okay. All right. There's a comment on the chat that I want to address, and it was referenced that there was a number of people in the department who are highly qualified and could be, to be chief, and we agree with that. And that's one of the reasons why we're looking at taking for someone from the outside, so we can give everyone an opportunity to have an equal shot at it, rather than appointing someone as an interim and perhaps have perception or giving them a leg up on the position. So we want to have a fair and open process And that's one of the reasons we're looking at an interim outside chief. Any further discussion or comments?
Any thoughts of compensation?
This is like a pro bono thing, is it?
Bob can give you a ride in. He's a lot of-
We'll have the town if we decide, we'll have the town administrator.
As a retired person, do you have a limit to the number of hours you can work a week or anything, any stipulation like that?
There was, I believe, 3 months would not be sufficient, but I believe that limits have been suspended because along with the other emergency provisions the governor declared because of COVID.
Yeah, salary cap and hourly cap have been suspended for the duration of 2021 or until the governor lifts the emergency.
All right.
Either way, the 3 months wouldn't exceed.
No, I think they just did it. The 3 months wouldn't exceed it anyhow.
Yeah,
No,
that's-
that's right.
I don't know.
Right. Any further discussion? We have a
No,
motion.
is there anything else you want to share with us that you think we should know? Chief?
No, I'd be glad to answer any questions you have or provide you any information you want, but I can't think of anything specifically that I think needs saying.
Okay,
Rather than-
thank you.
Can we then have continue to work out the dynamics of a short-term contract and present it to the board for next Monday? Because I think there was a lot to talk about, compensation and sort of things like that. And I think, that should be brought to us in a more complete form rather than just, yeah, go ahead and hire the guy.
I guess that's okay.
You just got to remember that the chief is leaving on the 16th. Okay. Or perhaps we could meet later this week.
I'm going to be in touch with Chief Marchese tomorrow. We'll try and come up with an agreement and maybe some terms. I'll be in touch with the chair about terms. And if you wanted to, well, it's too late. We would have to do a special on Wednesday at
Thursday.
pardon?
Thursday. Thursday.
Oh, that's right, Thursday. Yeah.
So we have two options. We could either authorize the chair to go forward and come up with a settlement with him that he thinks will be acceptable to us, or we can have you negotiate something and meet on Thursday, or third option, we can wait till next Monday, which puts a very short time window on transition.
Let's give it to the TA for Thursday.
That's fine by me. Fine by me.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob
It's
is
a
going to be
pleasure meeting
speaking
all
to
of you,
you.
and I look forward to working with you if it works out.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. It's important to know for those people who are upset is that we're doing this so that everyone in the department has a fair opportunity and a fair shot to set the resume, be interviewed. And also we have an obligation to the town to expand our search beyond the department to see if there's someone that, really is outstanding that's willing to come, although I do think we have quality men and women in the department. Right, and the chief is he's not interested. No. Hampden Regional Retirement Board assessment. Why Jason, from Jason to everyone, the members of the department do not have a fair shot. Why do you believe that? Unmute Jason. The police department do not have a fair shot at this if you're looking outside. This will hurt the morale of the members. I don't think you realize this. What do you think the responsibility of a selectman is? Yeah, go ahead, ask them,
I've asked him to unmute.
There he is.
He's still muted.
Jason, you been on mute?
I'm just interested why he doesn't think he would have a fair shot.
Well, I don't think he may be confused. He did speak about outside, and I don't think we made that decision. I think we have at least 2-3 quality candidates from inside. If the board then decides to, I don't think we've decided to open up to outside in the first round. And maybe that might be a misinterpretation there. I think we're quite comfortable looking inside the department first shot and seeing where we are there.
Well, I'm open to, I don't think this is working again, but I'm open to looking at anybody. I mean, I think that I prefer inside because we know the people inside and, you know, they're like part of our family. On the other side of the coin, I'm separate to somebody outside. So, I mean, I don't think I wouldn't want to tie our hands. But I would be interested in why Jason thinks that's not a fair thing. And am I being, can you hear me? Yes, it has somebody. No, it's not working. I think it's, I would be interested in why Jason thinks it's unfair when my perception is that if you open it to everybody in the department and anybody can apply who wants to apply, but you have an independent person who is just sort of managing the system while we wait for the decision to come down, that is more fair to everybody in the department rather than having somebody be acting who may indeed have a leg up on getting the real job. I'm also open to including outside people if down the road we decide that that's what we need to do to have a better pool of candidates. But I would be surprised since our local people seem very qualified. So I don't envision that happening, but it could happen. You don't know.
All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Hampden Regional Retirement Board assessment, which has gone up $103,000 from last year's. Last year's was $603,000. This year it's $706,000. Our assessment, and we've looked into it. And basically what it is that over the years, for many years, these retirement boards were not fully funded. The Hampden County Retirement Board is only funded at 49%. The state has required them to be fully funded by, I believe, 2036. And so there's an assessment on each town of 8% over each preceding year. Plus, it's also contingent upon the number of employees you have and their salaries. And so this year's raise for us is 17%. And there's not much around it, not much way around it.
First, I'd like to thank Dick Petula for sending us some documents that sort of made this pretty clear to me, which it had been a little muddled for me up until that point. So I appreciate the effort he put into sending that to us. I think that also, I've been getting a number of phone calls this week about the tax bills that went out and the increase in the tax bills. And this is forebodes, is that a good word? This forebodes a future of increased expenses to the town that we have no control over. So we can try to get as tight a budget as we can get to keep the tax rate as low as we can get. But these kinds of increases and the assessments that went up some 8% for the property values are out of our control, I think, unless I've misspoke. Correct me, somebody, if I misspoke.
Yes, this particular assessment's out of our control, and that's why this board is looking for ways to, with the parts that we can control, i.e. the budget, ways to offset these type of increases. As you said, last year we had to make some hard decisions about paving, et cetera, just to pay for increase in services. But
And this will be a difficult cut to come up with 139,000.
103,000 represents the typical half of the typical new growth. So you're looking at that, and then with the projection of, schools went down last year,
Yeah,
which
but
was
then
the thing, and with the decrease in population, may go down again, or population percentage. But when you look at the potential for the Collins Institute to come back with, proposed compensation increases, we could lose quite a bit of any new growth.
I don't have health insurance yet.
Mhm.
Thad has his hand raised if you want to. Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I am real puzzled. Like I think everybody in town is, and maybe someone can come up with a better explanation that it's out of our control. Because the way I understand it, the tax rate went down. Everybody's tax rate went down.
Yeah, the rate went down. Yeah.
The assessment went up. Don't the assessors work for the town of Hampden?
No.
How
They're
does
required
that
by
work?
law.
That's the part I don't understand. It's like you needed X amount of money. You take that X amount of money divided by the assessments and the tax rate, and that's what the assessed value is. So everything's equal. I don't understand what led anybody to believe the assessments went up. My property value certainly hasn't gone up, but yet they assessed it more. I've done nothing to improve my property. In fact, with all the fallen trees out there from the gypsy moss and everything, I'd be surprised that my property value hasn't dropped. But yet the assessors say it's gone up. You did a great job of reducing the tax rate from 20.15 down to 1967, but then tacked another $15,000 onto my house. So net, my property tax, yeah, it didn't go up a lot. It won't kill me $128, few cases of beer difference. But the point is, nobody in town can understand why the tax is going up. And I think to say it's out of control, I think there's something wrong with that, because who do these assessors work for?
If they're elected officials, they work for the town.
They're elected.
They're also guided by the state.
They're guided by the state. When is their election up so we can get some new ones in there?
Yeah.
Bob could ask because of the real estate.
Yeah. In 1980, the voters of Massachusetts passed Proposition 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
And as part of that, the law requires that all properties be assessed at so-called full and fair cash value. And so whether the selectmen were appointing the assessors or whether they're elected, they're obliged by law to give you a full and fair cash assessment for your property. If you think that the assessment is wrong, you can challenge it. You can go to the appellate tax board, or actually start with the assessors and appeal it. And then you have a second appeal process. But they do not have the option legally of assessing properties at a rate that they prefer. They have to do full and fair cash value by law.
How do they determine that percentage?
Well, they take comparable values. They will take houses in the neighborhood or on the same street that seem to have the same features
Sold recently?
and recent sales. And so it's usually a computerized process. Although when they do the general revaluation, that's usually done by a firm that is hired from the outside that does it professionally. But that firm also uses the same standards. They look at sales in the immediate vicinity. They take a look at the features of each house and they try and come up with comparables. And then they assign an assessed value. It's not an exact science, but frankly, the average house in Hampden was valued at $270,000 last year. This year, it's valued at $288,000.
Exactly. But Bob, that's my point.
Yeah, right.
The average went up. The tax rate went down, but net, there's more taxes. So net, the town is going to get more taxes than they needed. And I know you guys can always spend it. Everybody can spend it. That's not a problem. But the assessment came after the tax rate was set then, is what I'm hearing. Because you set the tax rate anticipating that the assessment was not going to go up. yet the assessment went skyrocketed. Okay, everybody's in town. If there's anybody in town that their tax went down, it's going to be very, very few. Only be maybe the Cumberland Farm Building, but even that thing probably went up because they cleaned up all the trash in front of it.
Actually, the process is the assessors come up with the assessed value for each property, typically in the early part of the fall, and then the selectmen have a hearing and they determine whether or not to split the tax rate or to keep it a unified tax rate. Hampden has always had one tax rate for all classes of property, real estate, commercial, industrial, and so forth. And once they've made that decision, then the tax rate can be set. The selectmen, by the way, don't set the tax rate. It may seem as though they do. The tax rate is actually set by the Department of Revenue in Boston.
So basically, it is kind of the way Bob explained it. The town votes a budget. That sets the amount of money you have to raise with the offsets or any revenues coming in. The
Right.
assessors go out and get a value for the town. Light poles, the electric utilities, everyone's house. After doing a comp study, you have 4 homes on Street A that were all valued at $200,000. But last year, 3 of the 4 homes sold for $250,000. If they're all identical, that 4th home is probably also as a comp sale worth $250,000. Fine, now you have a value for the town. You take the money you need to raise, i.e. the budget, less any revenues coming in, divide that into a value, and that's the proposed tax rate, which, as Bob said, gets certified by the state and then presented to the selectmen. Any offsets, any changes, single rate? No, then that's the rate there is. We can't go back and say, we think that 1967 is a little high. Come on, we make it 1950. Then you won't have the money for the budget. We don't have an option for that. The assessors do the job they're trained for by coming up with a value for the town. Comp sales mean a lot. We've been fortunate in town that the electric utilities have been doing a lot of updates in the past few years. Substation on Allen Street provided a tremendous value upgrade. Changing out the poles, the high wire poles from wood to metal. I think Norm said that was a $10 to $15 million upgrade. Those values actually depress the amount of money that we have to raise in residential. But all that factors into then setting the rate at the last moment.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyhow, that's in the budget. That's a bolt, and that's in the budget, 103,000 increase for the retirement.
That's an opportunity for the assessors to give a little one-on-one type thing.
We could ask the assessors to, maybe we do. Okay. Anything else? The town administrator's report?
You have it here.
Oh, John, excuse me, John.
Sorry, selectmen reports. So basically, a couple of boards that I sit on, the COA has a member they want to propose to the board. They interviewed Tina Duran, and they're going to be presenting a recommendation to our board to appoint her to under 60. I know all of us wanted that job, but none of us qualified. Also, planning is meeting, and I think that this possibly could be the year that Kibbe Lane comes before the town. No guarantee.
No one's meeting with over the holidays.
I would just quickly report on the Board of Health. The Board of Health met today, discussed the health agent position and the nurse's position going forward. The health agent, Wilbraham, has expressed an interest in continuing with the partnership of Wilbraham, Munson, and Hampden. Longmeadow has also reached out and is interested in joining Hampden. So Mr. Marco is going to research both of those options and see where we stand. We wanted to do this in a timely fashion so that we're not at the last minute when Lori leaves in August. So we have set an early timeline for ourselves. And what else can I tell you? The first responders, they thought were going to get their shots on the 11th, which would be fire and police. That's the tentative date, but they change everything all the time, so who knows if anybody will show up. And on January 6th, the nursing home was supposed to be receiving their inoculations. But again, we'll believe it when we see it because there's been a lot of delay. They said, she said CVS was.
I believe that's going to be in East Long Meadow.
It's going to be in East Long Meadow.
CVS and
Walgreens.
Walgreens are going to be doing the nursing homes.
Okay. Okay. So she didn't. I don't know if she said that.
They have 9,000
They what?
They have 9,000 pharmacists.
Doing the first responders?
No, the nursing homes.
Oh, the nursing homes.
No, across the country.
Oh, good. Okay, so those are the highlights of our meeting. You know, we'll work on the town report because we brought that up, and we'll be all ready to hand it in on time.
Let's see. Town administrator's report.
Mine is going to be brief tonight. I have spent some time since the last meeting with the recruitment for an interim police chief. Also, the capital planning committee preparations. It's going to meet again tomorrow. We're meeting now every 2 weeks. And we've got an agenda to take a look at this particular building. They all have a copy of the study that was done 2 years ago, 2017, the accessibility and the capital study for this building. We're also going to put together, based primarily on the information that our insurance company has, an inventory of the town's assets and the value of those assets. And then lastly, I've asked them to approve 2 forms that I'm going to be sending to departments. One would be for each capital item that the department foresees over the next 5-year period. And the other is an explanation for department heads as to how to evaluate what constitutes a capital item, and then how the capital items will be evaluated and prioritized by the Board of Selectmen and the advisory committee. Impact bargaining is set for Wednesday, and I think that's everything else has been covered up to now. So.
Town report. Do you ever get any volunteers?
We did not. We did not.
We do. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Madison, Pixley,
Yep.
Oh,
his
okay.
sisters, and Craig Profess.
Okay.
So I'm gonna get in touch with them shortly because the time frame is coming. And John, you had mentioned calendars and scheduling budget reviews. You have in your package, or in your folder rather, our calendar versus advisory's calendar. So I've got people scheduled now, so we can continue it on some sort of.
So the plan is you'll speak to Chief Marchese, see if you can meet some kind of agreement. We'll meet
Yes.
Thursday night.
Yeah.
We have to post that. Whatever else to do.
And I'm going to be in touch with the Wilbraham Town Administrator to get a schedule for the Wilbraham Selectmen completing a decision or action on the IMA.
Any further for the board? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Stay safe.
Good shot.